Okay, folks, this is Bo back with you. This is about my fourth take on this one. So let me see if I can struggle through it without tripping over myself. I want to talk this morning here about knowledge versus wisdom. Now, in the earlier presentation this morning, I talked about wisdom. Now I'm coming on to knowledge. Knowledge seems to be very well sought after, those that profess to be knowledgeable. The whiz kids, the smart kids. We tend to put a great deal of emphasis on these smartest kid I ever met, brightest kid I ever met, this, that, and the other, while pushing those with wisdom aside. And I hate to see that. I think so much is lost in that vein. And I think it has come to where it's had an impact on pilot retention in the Air Force today, and also the development of the T-7. And I'm going to get into that a lot more in the next presentation. But for now, we'll come back to knowledge. When I first showed up at Nellis in January 1969, I had the great fortune of meeting Master Sergeant Jim Davis. And he taught me more in 18 months that I was there at Nellis before I went to pilot training than I learned in 4 years at ROTC about how to conduct myself in the Air Force, how to run a weapons load shop, how to deal with people, both senior and junior to me. And for that, I'll be eternally grateful. Now, I don't know how much knowledge I brought to the table, but boy, did I pick up a lot of wisdom talking to Jim and the older guys around the squadron. And we've gotten away from that. We now tend to focus on what you've accomplished, what you've done, and what you're doing, more so than how wise is it to do those things. It's kind of hard to shred out, I suppose. As you can see, I'm struggling here a bit with the idea. But let me give you an example, a couple examples. The first one involved John Hildebrandt and I, as we were standing outside of the squadron here a couple of years ago with a bunch of the current pilots, the current IPs. We were all standing out there waiting for the return of a couple of guys that had flown in Vietnam. They were taken for rides, as we always do every year at those functions. And we were just standing out there waiting for them to return. So while we're standing there talking, these two guys, a major and a lieutenant colonel, got to talking about flying a T-38 versus their respective aircraft, the F-15 and the F-16. And it was kind of interesting to stand there and listen to them. And they were talking, and they got onto the G-suit system. And both of them agreed that the G-suit system, the inflation of our G-suits, was a lot better in the F-15 and the F-16 than it was in the T-38, to the point that they were really trashing the 38 for being old, this, that, and the other. And John and I stood there and looked at each other, and finally John pipes up and he says, we had a way of getting around it. Getting around it meaning the G-suit didn't inflate quite as quick, apparently, as it did in those newer aircraft. And they kind of looked at John and looked at me, and John says, he says, when we knew that the student, for example, was going to start laying on the G, like beginning a loop, 4 or 5 Gs, he said, we would reach down and there's a button on the left side there that's on a spring bob, and just take that button and push it in. That opens a valve that allows the air to flow into your G-suit. He says it will start inflating before the student's able to get into 4 or 5 Gs. And so you got really a huge jump on it. Well, these two guys looked at each other like they just discovered that when you eat a banana, it really is better to peel the damn thing before just chewing into it. Okay. So that was kind of funny. You could just watch them right at that time. These are the knowledgeable kids. The wise guy said, just reach down and push the button. You'll be fine. And it was almost as if these two guys were anxious to go out and crawl in a couple of jets and go out and try it. it was hard not to laugh out loud, but that was hilarious. I guess you had to have been there. Another incident we had is a lot closer to home. About 5-6 years ago, I met this kid who was in the process of applying to be a member of our family. That's a real wise way to say this. Anyway, so this kid is trying to make an impression on all of us, and that's well and good. He's trying to impress us with how much he knows about everything. Anything. Okay, fine. Well, at the time, I had a small business, and I was looking at expanding into social media. Now, I admit I know how to sign on to Facebook and Instagram and whatever, but I don't know a lot of the intricacies. I'm not that interested in it. But he said he knew quite a bit about Instagram. He had X amount of thousand followers, this, that, and the other. Okay, fine. He said, I'd be willing to help you. I said, okay. So I kind of laid out what I wanted to do, and to his credit, he started to help me a little bit, but then he started going way beyond the limits that I had kind of set. So I called and challenged him on it, and he got upset about that. And he came back at me, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. I was just trying to share my knowledge. Okay. He said it in a manner that was really kind of condescending. And I'm thinking to myself, you're 18, 19 years old. How much knowledge do you have? I'll give you that you could kick my ass in Instagram, but on a whole world scheme, you don't know the square root of Foxtrot Alpha. And I told him at that time, well, I said, as far as I'm concerned, at this juncture, I said, your services are no longer needed. Well, that hurt his feelings, and I don't think we've ever recovered from that. It doesn't make much difference. He's choosing not to talk to me today anyway, and I'm just truly broken up about it. Okay, so this young kid's trying to impress me with his knowledge, and I'm not impressed. And I think we put too much stock in knowledge and not enough in wisdom. I guess that's the whole point of this presentation. And I'm going to take that here in a little bit, in the next video or two, and tie it all together. So hang in there. There is a point in this. That being said, this is Bobo Basic Gear. Stop.